Hello, this video is for you if you are an aftermarket auto parts manufacturer. I'm Amanda. I'm with the ASAP network. We help manufacturers like you clean up their data and make it more digestible for e-commerce. E-commerce is our focus, so of course dealers and getting your data to them are what we do. And as I go through this process, I come across a lot of manufacturers who really don't want to be part of any kind of data program. And that's okay for a number of reasons, right? I get it. But since we're cleaning up other manufacturers and they could be your competitors, there are some things that I'd like to share with you so that if you don't want to get involved with someone who understands and cleans up the data and you want to do it yourself but just don't know how, I'm going to share a few tips with you that could help you get more dealers and get more of your products out there online. And of course, more dealers, more of your products online absolutely is going to result in more sales. So here's a couple things, and we're going to do this kind of in the environment that we're talking about, right? So um, the three main things that we're going to talk about is how to get your data sheets ready to import onto websites, how to make sure your data looks good as it translates into a display, and you got to make it easy for your guys to get, or guys and girls, to get your data sheets. One of the big issues that I hear from dealers all the time, and not just dealers, I build websites, I have gone through it myself. You can't make us wait weeks while we call and we email and we call and we email and we get sent back something after weeks that just really isn't at anywhere near what we need to put your parts online. So anyway, maybe if you had some tips on how to get better data out to them, it wouldn't be like that. Understand, most of these dealers don't just sell your products, and so when they're hot and they're ready and they're in love with your products, get them that data that day so you don't wind up being put on the back burner, right? While someone else sells your competitors' parts. So I'm showing you this in this format right now because I want you to see that when you write something, right, and you see it this way, I need you to understand that bots and websites see it a different way, right? So it turns it into HTML. And a lot of things that I see on the data sheets and that I try and clean up are symbols that I see on a lot, especially in the automotive industry, that will really take your data, and you could see it fine. Again, you see it and it looks fine, and you see the percent sign, you see the inch sign, but that's not what happens. So sometimes it's okay. Sometimes, and it's not your fault, it's Excel's fault. Excel, I don't know why Excel makes it so difficult or impossible to open your data and default your Microsoft Excel to Universal Translation 8 files, right, to UT8 files, but they don't. What they usually, not what they usually, what they do is open that file. So even if it's clean on your side, if you've got some symbols in there, when your dealers open it up, or when it goes to translate onto the back end of their website, it usually goes into like a Windows 1251, or it changes it. And what Windows does when it does that is we'll take that percent sign, it will take that inch sign, and again, we've all seen it, right? So you'll see this is what happens when there's a trademark, right? I don't know if you can see that or not. And you'll see a lot of this ampersand MBSP semicolon. You didn't write that, but because it's code, it says, hey, there's two spaces here and not one space. Or maybe it took a dash that you used and gave it a long dash symbol. Again, could be not your fault, but it does do that. So knowing that it does that, if we just eliminate that from the beginning, we won't have an issue. So you'll want to remove the trademark symbols or any kind of the 3/4 inch symbols, right, where you've used a symbol instead of 3-4. You want to remove those before you give the dealers the data, because otherwise when it goes onto your website it's not clean, or on their website it's not clean. It has I just dealt with one that uh, the manufacturer obviously had at some point HTML with bullet points. They removed the HTML, sent over the description, and so those bullet points, those little circles, turned into question marks on their data sheet. And that really was horrible, because when you have to go in and try and find and replace, maybe there was a question mark and now you're replacing it with a dot. Same thing with the inch signs, right? When you have to go in and maybe you used it as a quote on something, so you can't quickly go in as a dealer and go find and replace all inch signs and say inch instead, because they might end up with a paragraph that should have had quotation marks, which you just don't want to do. Don't risk it with the HTML. But now it says inch statement inch, right? So it makes it very difficult if they're even going to do it at all. And of course, this all is because this consumer can't see you, they can't talk to you, they can't touch you, they can't hear your product, they can't see the smile of the guy that's going to be selling it to them. They only have the impression that you give them with your descriptions and your images and your titles. So it's critical that these be as perfect as they can be, right? Anyway, so my recommendation first is go into your data and take all your inch signs, you know, the little character inch sign, and replace it with the word inch or IN or whatever you feel like doing, but replace that, because it does wreak havoc when it translates into HTML. And your percent sign, oh my goodness, you know, 9 out of 10 times that is going to translate into some funky character, and then you'll see your data all over the place with this funky character in there. And again, the trademark needs to be taken out. You can certainly have the trademark on your website if you want to, but if you put that in there, you risk, when it translates into code as it's loading to a website, you risk that very much. So secondly, after you've done all this pretty stuff, right, there are some things that I get over and I've taken a couple data sheets and I've really tried to make sure I'm not you know, exposing anyone else's data, but I want to show you a couple things here. So I get a lot of price sheets, that was in parentheses, price sheets, and they'll come over like this. All right, so and I removed the picture. I just put a picture. You can't embed pictures, right? This stuff here, and again, I've changed all the descriptions and whatnot. This is worthless for anyone who's using it for their e-commerce website, right? They cannot take this and import your price updates. So even if they had your data on their website, when I get something like this, there is a lot of time involved that I have to go in, and if I do it, everyone else has to as well. I have to get rid of all of this stuff, right? All of this stuff, it can't be here. All the images, all the extra stuff. I know that you're trying to give it to them maybe like a PDF, and they want an Excel, and so you make it look like a PDF, and then I understand, but this is just way unacceptable. Everything's got to be stripped out, and it just takes time. And every time you make someone spend a lot of time trying to get your parts done, what you're going to find is they're not going to update very often, because it is time consuming. And you know, not just with any business, life itself, right? We're trying to figure out how to put 36 hours into 24 hours, and if your parts are not helping them get to their end goal quickly, you'll find that you don't have them all on your website, on their website. So I really honed down, and again, I squished everything in this because I didn't want to disclose this this brand. But if you don't want to do the full data sheet that has, your attributes, and attributes, of course, meaning like this one, lift height, your finishes and location, and just things that are part specific to certain, I don't know what your parts are, but um, those attribute fields that are on a data sheet help you sell more parts, because consumers, when they go on to someone's website and there is your parts and there is 17 other brands parts on there, or just let's just pretend it's your parts, but if they wanted to go and get a lift kit or a bumper or just whatever, those attributes will help them filter quicker, right? Uh, kind of like if you were looking online for chocolate chip cookies and you went to the category tree and it said cookies, and then it might have even said chocolate chip. Now the filters are going to be vegan and gluten-free and with nuts or without nuts. Those attribute fields have to be separated out as well as being in your product description, but it will help you sell more parts, because consumers get frustrated real quick, and if they have to look through 9 pages of parts, they're just not going to. So the minimum you should be able to get away with, the minimum, is your part number, your title, your description, your price, images, your shipping, a category, your brand name, and your fitment. So we don't have to have a lift height, right? We don't have to have any of that. It's not going to do as well if other brands do have that on there and yours doesn't. And so if 5 out of 6 brands, your being the 6th brand, is the same part type, and the first 5 manufacturers have these attributes, right? And so your dealers put them on their site, and the consumer goes, I want this. And then they get a choice of, well, do you want to go with sort by lift height? For just an example. But yours didn't have that. Your products won't even come up under that, right? And so, again, it takes the competitive edge and gives it straight to your competitors. Anyway, so why do you need your brand? They know it's from you because on every website, you see it yourself. It says shop by category or shop by brand. If you didn't give that to them, they're not going to load it, and that makes them spend more time. So do them a favor and give them your brand and the categories. So one of the things I see, and again, I get it, it is it's just not fun to work on data, but one of the things I see a lot of is you are copying and pasting, and that's great and wonderful, and it helps with human error. But when you do a space at the beginning of something, or when you do a space at the end, and you're loading to a website, chances are this becomes different than this. And this adds a new field because it's code. And so it's saying, well, there's an extra space here. What do I do with that? Or there's an extra space here. It's not so hard to run through and go, oh, you had an extra space. If I was to take the time and go through your whole column and go, I can see there's an extra space there. Really difficult when it's here, right, behind the name. So I you want to trim those up. You want to really make sure those are tight, because when you're loading to a website, spaces are saying something different to the website. So you want to tighten those up. Also, go through your categories and make sure they're all consistent, right? And so I've seen where one manufacturer might have bumper and bumpers in the same data sheet. Well, that's just silly, right? And so pick what it's going to be for you, and then find the other one and replace it, because when your dealer puts that on his website, now he has a category for bumper and a category for bumpers. And that's going to just look silly, and it's going to cause your brand and your dealer to not have very many sales. The other thing I've noticed is be a little more specific about your parts. So if it's a bracket, right, and oh, it's a bracket, great, that's a bracket, and that is a valid category, but there's tons of different types of brackets, right? So should it really be showing up under bracket and that's it, or should it be showing up under axle bracket, track bar bracket, right? You want it to show up. You want this to show up like long arm lift kits, right? This is a primary category, and then it's going to show up in a secondary category because there are people looking specifically for long arm lift kits, and there are people looking specifically not for long arm lift kits. So I don't think you need to have the hierarchy in there, but at least give your dealers that help to say, so for example, maybe on your bumpers, you might just go, this is front bumpers, right? Because most of them have primary categories. They just want to tuck you in into one of their primary categories, and I'm sure something like front bumpers should be there. But yeah, so a lot of times if you have your parts in the wrong places, or you didn't go far enough to your base category, then when someone gets online, they go, let me see axle parts. Okay, there's a lot of parts that go with axles. What is it? What type of axle part is it? Don't just say axles, right? Because then consumer, how are they going to find you? How are they going to drill down on that category tree? And and especially if you have no attributes whatsoever. So if you can give your dealers, I mean, this is mandatory, right? Without these things, and that's not too much, right? Without these things, though, they cannot load your parts to their website without them doing something about it. And so anyway, that's what we do here at ASAP is we spend the time and we go through all that. Um, and we wanted you guys to know what you could do as well, so that the whole industry is being lifted up together. You can certainly give me a call if you have questions. You don't have to be on the ASAP network to get information about what you should do. We're here to help the industry. So here's my phone number. That's 7 days a week. My name's Amanda. You have a question? Ask me. I'd rather see these dealers sell more parts, even if it's not coming from ASAP. Ask me. We can make this work better for you. So, all right. Have a wonderful day. Hope that helped.